This is my first time using it in this manner. So I just want to kind of give you you guys see that, right? Okay. Give you kind of the steps on how to get there. Okay. So how's that going? See the delay? Isn't that crazy? Okay. So let me share my screen. And then I can show you how to get there. Share. Okay. So when you go to Blackboard, however you get to it, and my class is done here. You guys are the what? Tuesday, Thursday, 9:25. So when you click on it, on the left, you're going to have the gradebook button. I think I went over this last time, but you have a gradebook button on the left. So when you click on the gradebook button, you can go to test one should be in here. I didn't take test one, so that's why it's probably not in here. But test one should be in here. And on the right, you'll have your grade. And if you click on the grade, it'll show you what you missed or didn't miss. Okay. If it does not, let me know. But it's like you click on it, and then on the right over here, it'll say like, 75 or 80. It'll be like in a blue color. And then when you click on it, it'll tell you what you missed or didn't miss. So let me know if that works or doesn't work. It worked in the other classes. So, but I just wanted to show you guys as we were moving forward what was up and all the fun features I found on Blackboard. Okay. So let's stop that. Get back to here. And then let me move you down to this thing. So first off, before we get rocking and rolling, are there any questions about homework? Any questions? Let me move over to the webcam here. So any questions? I think I can hear you guys. Yeah. There we go. Is that okay? Okay, guys, this is not going to take long if you don't ask me any questions, which I'm not going to object to that. I just want you to know you're not going to have the whole hour and 15 minutes filled up if I'm just going to kind of do a basic review. First off, the sections we started with 2.3. 2.3 was over really kind of some basic stuff. First, it was slope of a line, right? You're going to have to find the slope. Then you're going to have to find the equation of a line. Find y equals mx plus b. Now, I'm going to give you two different things. First, I'm going to give you a point and a slope for one example. And then another one, I'm going to give you 2 points. Okay, so find slope and then find y equals mx plus b, given a point and a slope, and then also given 2 points. I think that was all 2.3. Hold on, let me make sure. Oh yeah, and then just graphing a line. That's multiple choice, so it'll be where you have to choose which one's the right line. Which one is correct. Not a big deal. 2.4 though, we went over equations of lines that are parallel and perpendicular, right? So we had parallel and perpendicular lines. And so really you're finding y equals mx plus b of a parallel line and those are two separate questions, okay? The line's parallel to another line and you're given a point, or if a line's perpendicular to another line and you're given a point. That was 2.4. And then the last part of 2.4 was average rate of change. an average rate of change on this test, we're only going to look at the average rate of change between x1 and x2 of a given function. And if you go back in that homework, you'll see what I'm talking about. When I tried to find an example of if it was like a graph and we found the average rate of change, or kind of a real world example, but I couldn't find one in that test generator software. So I stuck to questions where I give you a function and I ask you to find the average rate of change between two x coordinates, okay? And if you go in the homework, there's questions directly that look exactly like that, okay? So now really, these two sections, 2.3 and 2.4, should be on in the same section. They should be like 2.3a and 2.3b. They're the same content, really. So I consider this kind of the first part of the homework. 2, 5, 6, and 7 don't really line up with this at all. But do you guys have any questions about this stuff on this page? This is all about linear functions, really, except the average rate of change. This is all about straight line functions. And it should be, a lot of it should be reviewed. The only kind of new thing that you might have not seen before, I assume, is average rate of change. If you haven't had like a pre-cal or a calculus class. Questions? I don't mind fielding any questions at all. Okay. So next we had 2.5, which was on transformations of functions, right? Now, transformations of functions, well, I want that, you've got to ask me questions, CJ. So if you have a question from that section, I'll be more than happy to answer it. But yeah, so if you have a question from that section, I'll go over it. Yeah. That makes sense? Okay, good. And if you guys, hey guys, if you start working on this, if you kind of start reviewing and you come into a question, feel free to email me. So I think I opened the test. I think it's already open probably. But if not, it'll be like at 10 o'clock or so. But remember, same rules as before. Once you get started, you can't stop. You got an hour and 15 minutes, all the same stuff from last test. But if you're working on these over, especially today and tomorrow, and you come into a question and you're not sure about, I'm talking about working on the homework, not the test. Working on the homework and you come to a question, feel free to email me. I should be pretty open tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon is going to be booked with a lot of stuff. But even on the week, you might catch me on the weekend. This weekend I'll have less stuff going on, which is nice. But when you email me, here's the only thing: when you guys email me, please put which class you're in. Okay, not just say hey, like put hey, Mr. Shirley, this is Joe Schmo from your college algebra 925 class, or Tuesday, Thursday 925 class. I've got a question on page 225, number 15, something like that. And I can help. It helps me even more if you take a picture of the question. Because if I'm in my house, I probably don't have the book, okay? So if you take a picture of the question and then sometimes, and maybe even your work, it's usually just some goofy mistake we're making, right? So if you take a picture of the question and your work, I can probably explain kind of where you're going off, on the left, how you're going off the rails on the question. So no, I don't mind fielding those at all. And I get excited that you're working on homework and doing what you're supposed to do. So if that happens, feel free to do that. Please do that. Okay, so back to transformations. We stuck with rigid transformations, which were, vertical, horizontal, and then, the reflections. Now, within that, I'm going to ask this two different ways. One is to graph it, where you graph the parent function, and then you graph the transformation. So, you go to the left two. No, I'm not, wait. I need to just open this up. No, I'm not going over stretching at all, CJ. That's, you don't have to worry about it. I'll tell you, the way I build this class really is, one, based on the standards that the state gives me, it's unlike K-12 education. Higher education, there's a lot less standards, so I can kind of be more broad in what I want to choose. Second, I kind of make it where if you go on to pre-cal or cal, that you have the tools to do well in that class. So that's where, and stretching isn't, you won't see it in pre-cal or cal, unless your pre-cal teacher just has a thing for stretching parent functions for some reason. Okay, so we've got, first I want you to graph it. And the second is I want you to come up with the equation. So develop the function. Now, if you go back to the lecture, and it was, I don't know if it was necessarily in the test. I'll give you an example of this one, okay? Because I don't know if it was in the homework that well, but I'm going to give you an example of this one. And if you go back to the lecture in 2.5, you'll see this as well. And it's, if we know the parent function and we know the transformations, I want you to give me the function. So for example, here's an example. G of x has a parent function of, let's say, the absolute value of x, okay? Now, I might say the absolute value parent function. I might not give you the equation. I might just say absolute value parent function. And it's shifted left to, and then let's say down 3. So left 2 and down 3. And I want you to give me g of x. Well, we know it's absolute value. So we know we've got something going on the inside of the absolute value and on the outside of the absolute value. Okay. So if we shift to the left, remember horizontal transformations inside the function, and to the left was the opposite. So it's going to be x plus 2. Okay. And then down 3 just means minus 3 on the outside. So that's, that is a good example. And this will be our function. So graphing it would be like, I give you this and I ask you to graph it. Okay. And that's in the homework quite a bit. But then developing the function is when you have to come up with the actual equation. So I think, did we do anything? No, that was it. I mean, that was 2.5. It was the transformations. 2.6 though is kind of probably the longest section. 2.6 was first over combinations. So combinations of functions. This was add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Okay, look, don't get these wrong. These are kind of the easy questions. The only time I ever get students, the only time students miss these, other than if they just didn't show up to lecture, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But the only time I have students that miss these are with the subtraction if they forget to distribute the negative, or if they just think too much on it and they multiply when they should have added, or so. Yeah, it's stuff like that. Go back and look at it. And if you did the homework, you'll see these are really, really simple questions. It was just combining like terms. That's all it really was. Okay. And then the second was compositions. And I'm going to ask compositions 2 different ways. First, I'm going to give two functions. And find the compositions. Okay. So given 2 functions like f of x and g of s, and do f composed of g or g composed of f. And if you did the homework, you'll know what I'm talking about. And the second one is given the composition function. Find the 2 functions that compose it, okay? Okay, so given a composition, find the 2 functions that compose the composition, okay? And that was it. Now, okay, 2.6, there were some questions that I wanted to put on the test that, oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me now? I might need to be closer. Can you hear me, Tia? Okay, can I get a thumbs up from you guys on Zoom if you can hear me? Like, give me the thumbs up button. If you don't have the thumbs up button, that's fine. Okay, yeah, thanks, CJ. Okay, so you can hear me now too. Okay, great. Okay, so you guys okay? Okay. So now look, I tried to, if you look back at 2.6 at the very end, there were some graphing questions that were like, it was the 2.6 like practice plus where you had to like add the two functions together, but it was all based on a graph. I couldn't put those on the test. I couldn't find a good example. I wanted to, if this was a regular semester, you would have gotten those questions. But if you go back to there, it's the questions at the very end, I think like numbers 88, 89, something at the very end. But I couldn't put those in there. I would still look at them to grasp the context or content, but you don't have to worry about it. You can stick to the kind of the easier ones right here. And 2.7 is what we went over last time, right? Inverses. So I asked the inverse question a few different ways. First, which functions are inverses? So like, I'm going to give you, I'll kind of tell you, because the homework doesn't technically ask it like this, but I'm going to give you, you know, like three functions, like f of x, g of x, and let's say h of x. And there'll be equations with them, right? But to figure out which of these are inverses, remember you take the composition. So if like f composed of g winds up being x, then we know f and g are inverses, right? So you just have to check it that way. Which two have compositions that give me x, okay? Which two have compositions that give me x? And then it was finding the inverse. Right there, we had this lecture. Yeah, we did. Okay, the other class had to miss. In this lecture, if you go back, you'll see that we went through how to find the inverse. It was the like really kind of the second part. Understanding one-to-one functions. Remember, a one-to-one function is a function that passes the vertical and horizontal line test, right? Not a big deal. Yeah. Hold on. That's it in that section. I talked a lot more in that section, but testing wise, that's what you need to know. It's all vertical. Oh yeah. Graphing inverses. Graphing inverses. Okay, graphing inverses. Okay. Any questions? Okay, here's what I can do. I can kind of give you some examples from the book that I would focus on. Okay. And I'll start. Actually, your book does a really good job of reviewing at the end of each chapter. Okay, this is on page. Yeah, this starts on page 324. And you'll see if you flip over to that page, it'll have like all the review. And you notice, I mean, we cut this off in the middle of the chapter, so it starts on kind of the bottom right hand side. But I'm going to choose some from this example because I know you have the answers to all of these, so it's kind of nice. And it's just a good review. And you haven't seen these in the homework, so you can kind of. Oh, hold on, CJ, I'll get to you. Hold on. So the what's nice about these is that you haven't seen them, so you kind of test yourself this way with these questions. Okay, I'll come back to you, CJ. So on page 324, I would do 31, 33, 35. This is from 2.3/2.4. I should put it that way. 31, 33, 35, 36. Oh, yeah. 37, 38. Oh, my God. It's almost like they made the test. 40. 45. It's a little different. And then I would go to the 2.5 section. And it's still same page, or actually it's on page 325 now. But use the graph the function. Yeah. Okay, I don't do a regular graph, so I'll do it down here. You can make a standard quadratic. Yeah. Look at 54, 55, 56, 58, and 59. Ooh. I'm going to kind of just pick out a few. 62. 67. Ooh. And then we get to 2.6. 71. Okay, I forgot to mention when we went over 2.6, I include a question just like 71 on the test. And it's really from the last test. It's the domain question, okay? And remember 2.6, we went over the domain question in the last test. I kind of skipped ahead, did a little bit in 2.6, and then I came back. Well, that pops up again on this one, and it's question 71 on really page 325 when you're following along. So let's do 76. And I would do all of it. Like 76 has like kind of an A, B, C, D thing. And then don't worry about finding the domain for each function, just the plus, minus, multiply, divide. And then 79. Yeah, 79. Good example. And then 83. Man, these are good. And then 2.7, which is the last stuff. So, yeah. Okay, that's not too bad. 86. 86 is a good one about given two functions, showing that they're composite or showing that they're inverses. And then 87. Oh, yeah. 90. 93. 94. Yep. So sorry. These are good review questions for this test. Really good review questions. So if you were looking at, reviewing, and then if you kind of got stuck on a few, you know exactly which section to go back to and look at, okay, and which lecture to look at. Okay, CJ.